My name is Lee Boswell May. I was born in Orange Memorial Hospital in Orange, New Jersey, September 24th, 1945, at that time. And the people of color, the people who work for the town, the police, fire department, we all lived in the area from South Orange Avenue to maybe Roland Avenue, from Prospect to Ridgewood Road. That was the working class area of the town. And everybody, like I said, everybody knew everybody. And it was so nice and perfect, and there was no tension racially, to the point where my parents became afraid for me that I wouldn't understand what it was like to be a person of color in the rest of the country. So they sent me to Alabama for a summer. And this is in the late 1950s. This is right after the Montgomery boycott. Montgomery was near where I was going, Tuskegee Institute. My uncle was in the Air Force, and he was at Tuskegee Institute, so that's where I spent my summer. And I'll never forget this. I flew down, and when the plane landed, my uncle, who was in his full dress uniform, he was a major at the time, got on the plane and took me off and walked me through the terminal and showed me the two water fountains and the segregated bathrooms, and he walked me to a military car, and that's how we got back to his house. All my years, I had never seen my uncle in a uniform unless it was some kind of special day. But for him to be in uniform, that told me right there that it was a tense area, and I had to be on my guard. And then driving through town, you know how we have like rotary signs on Ku Klux Klan? So that was my introduction to segregation. And when I got home after my summer, I had a great summer, I had a lot of fun, but we couldn't move around like I was used to moving around. And I wrote a paper, you know, how I spent my summer vacation. And the teacher told me to read it for the class. And you know what the reaction was here? The average reaction was, 2 bathrooms, 2 fountains, that's ridiculous. It increases the cost of the construction. That's what we were thinking of. We weren't even thinking, you know, that's ridiculous, you know. And that stayed in my mind, that the thought process was so different between racism and equality. It's just a whole different. My parents, they sent me to Glassboro State College, and the dorms were segregated. There were no blacks living on campus. And if you lived off campus, they had a separate list. They had a list for the black kids and a list for the white kids. And my parents, instead of sending my photograph when they sent all the paperwork in and the check for the dorm and all that stuff, they didn't send my photograph. And because I was from South Orange, the school automatically assumed I was white. So I go to the dorm to check in, and the head of the dormitory says, "You can't stay here." And I couldn't believe it. You know, I was shocked. My parents sued the State Board of Education and won. And by Christmas break, all of the kids who were off campus, they had found dormitory rooms for. All of the black, suddenly they had dorm rooms for everybody. The interest, I also am the curator of Jazz in the Loft at SOPAC, and I do Giants of Jazz, and that's part of what that all came about with my activities with music and the arts in town. I have been involved, and I would go to the Improv at night to sing. And this is back in the day when Bette Midler was there. And Bette would open the show sometime. Now, Bette Midler's going to open the show. You know, you're just like somebody off the street. Nobody wanted to follow her. And this particular night, I had signed up to sing, and Bette opened the show, and I went back and I said, "You can take my name off the list." And there's this guy sitting at the bar, and he said, "Don't let that girl scare you. Go on out there and sing." So I thought about it, and I did. And I sang My Funny Valentine. And when I came off, the guy at the bar said, introduced himself. He said, "I'm Earl May. I have a trio at the Playboy Club, and I'm looking for a singer." And he told me to come up to the club the following Tuesday and see what happens. So I went up there and I sang, and in the band, the piano player was Larry Willis, and he hired me to sing. I grew up in a household where jazz was king. My parents, my brother, my sister, was a group that was going to open with Hugh called the Jazz Crusaders. Now this is back in the early 70s. Jazz was not popular back then. People are literally running away from it. So I asked the band if they could take the jazz out of their name and just become the Crusaders. And they thought about it and they said, yeah. And that was how the Crusaders were born. Matter of fact, on the poster we have, Hima Sakila was easy because he had a hit record. Grazing in the Grass was going at the time. The next show I did was Miriam Makeba. Now, Miriam Makeba had been married to Hugh, but at the time that we were trying to do her show, which was in 72 or 73, I think, she was married to Stokely Carmichael. Richard Nixon was in office. Miriam was from South Africa. And when she left South Africa, she didn't have a South African passport. So other countries had given her passports. Other African countries and Cuba gave her a passport. So she was not liked by the United States government. And getting her into this country was a problem. We had already gotten Lincoln Center. The tickets were selling, things were going good. Couldn't get her in the country. We hired one of the best attorneys, and he said, "I'm trying, but the United States Department does not want her in." And finally, the way we got her into the country, I called Harry Belafonte. He was doing a show in Las Vegas at the time. I told him what was going on. He said, "Bring her in through San Francisco. I'll meet her at the airport with flowers and the press." And that's what happened, and that's how we got her in. I love putting shows together. I love working with the musicians and the talent, and seeing it develop, and it's just wonderful. When I ended up like handling my husband's business because he was the kind of musician, he loved to play. My funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Mm-hmm. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak when you open it to speak? Are you smart? Ooh, but don't change your hair for me. Not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day. My husband, if I was in the kitchen, or he would bring his bass and he would say, sing something. And he did that the morning that he died. He died suddenly. And he played his bass, and I sang that song. After he passed, I gave his basses to the Jazz Foundation and to a couple of young musicians. But the one bass that I kept was the bass that he called Coltrane, because he recorded Coltrane with Coltrane on that bass, and it's a bass that Mingus, who was Earl's teacher, told him to always record with. So I hung on to that. And then one day I looked at it, and because it wasn't being played, it was starting to come apart. I was over at Susie Q's one night, and Mike Rio, he's a bass player. He does the Blues in the Loft at SOPAC. And I said, you know, Mike's coming in and I'm going out, and it was like an out-of-body experience. I heard myself say, do you want Earl's bass? And Mike said, yeah. And the next day Mike came over and got the bass, and he said, come on, I'm going to take you, show you where I'm going to keep the bass. And we went over to Mike's apartment, and he started playing, and he played My Funny Valentine. He started, and I sang it. And then I said, Mike, why did you pick that song? He said, I don't know, I never play that song. It was like something from above. Favorite memory is being with my husband. Whether he was on stage or off stage, just being with him. Riding home from a gig, we would always, hold hands, or just being in his company. He was the sweetest, kindest man, and never allowed me to do a dish. He said, leave the dishes, I'll take care of it when I get home. But he was fun, he was funny. All the nieces and nephews loved him. My niece was in preschool, and so he volunteered to be the parent to go, because everybody else worked, to go and, on the day that they had to go to preschool, and he would come home, he said, oh, my knees are killing me. Because he would put himself down at the level of those little kids. And he just, that's my favorite memory, all of my memories with him.